What do you think of the three levels of analysis, Adila?
Putting my hand up. Subjective, objective.
Those that are more focused on subjective levels of analysis and those that are more focused on objective levels of analysis. So we could look at subjective and objective. Any other ideas? Okay, we're going to use those keywords because they're relevant. Any other ideas about the levels of analysis that you could consider?
Structure and agency.
Structure and agency. Okay. So all the stuff that you've looked at so far in your A-level is relevant now. Okay, because you've looked at the different levels of analysis for human behaviour. You have looked at it. Okay, you've looked at the structure theories and you've looked at the action theories. So there are three levels of analysis. We can go for the most, what are seen as objective. Okay, the measures that are seen as more objective and the explanations that are seen as more objective. And those that are seen as more subjective. Okay? So if we look at an objective level of analysis, what do we mean by that? Lavinia, what do you think we mean by objective?
Is it without, like, you're doing, like, or is that subjective?
Yeah, no, you're right. Always go with your gut feeling, like I said before. Okay? Objective is seen as not influenced by personal bias. It's seen as impersonal, which is how you're supposed to come across in an essay, like when we say don't use the word I, refer to it can be argued. That's seen as more objective. Okay, so it's seen as free of bias. So it's argued to be less biased. So any explanation that's arguing that it's less biased is trying to use different types of data and it's explaining things in a different way, using different information at a different level. So the explanation is based on the data, and the data is different as well. So what kind of data do you think the information might be used to try and be more objective? Hafsa, what kind of information might give you a more objective picture? Statistics, okay? So we're going to use statistics because it's seen as more objective, exactly. Okay? So statistics are used, and this is at the level of structure. So looking at the level of structure, which means that we've got perspectives that look at big, large-scale structures in society, we can explain crime and deviance, just like we can explain any form of human behaviour at the level of structures. So large-scale structures. Okay, what would be examples, Benicia, of large-scale structures we could study? What kind of identities did we look at last year? Right, is that a structure, or is it just an individual experience? It's a structure, isn't it? Because there's an age system. Because everyone has a different level of status based on their age in a kind of system to do with age, and social class as well. So class can be seen as a structure. Okay, looking at the level of social class structure, we can explain crime. Because there are patterns of class, groups, and their criminality and deviance. Age, there are patterns of age groups and their criminality and deviance, and victimisation as well. So working class, we said, are more likely to be victims as well as offenders. Young people are more likely to be victims as well as offenders. Okay, so we need to look at that. Gender and ethnicity are structures. So looking at the level of structure, we can talk about how the actions of any individuals are determined by the nature of the whole system itself. So in a sense, we don't really have free will and choice. We are playing out positions within a whole system. So look at the level of structure. We also look at the level of culture. Okay, so we can study the culture of society, how people's beliefs. So this is to do with beliefs. Determine action. Okay, so whereas the structure determines actions and behaviour, at the level of culture, if we study culture, we can see how beliefs determine actions. Because regardless of the level in the system where we're at, we also have a culture that influences beliefs. So beliefs and perceptions might be more important for theories that focus on culture, whereas for the structure perspectives, they might include culture, but they say the structure is most important more than culture. So it's just a different emphasis. Okay? And then we look at the level of the individual. And these can vary. Okay? But that is a subjective level of analysis. So what do we mean by subjective? Ebony, what do we mean by subjective, do you think?
Does it focus on like meanings and the idea that the individual shapes society around them?
Okay, so meanings held by an individual shapes the society around them. It's the individual that creates the society, not the structure shaping the individual, but the other way around, the individual shaping the whole society. So if we're looking at the level of the individual to explain crime, we tend to argue that it's the choices of individuals that make up the whole system, the whole total society. And so this looks not at the whole system, but at individuals. It looks at a different level of analysis. So we're going to start with the structure perspectives, because most of the perspectives do focus on class. That covers most of the perspectives. So that's a key point. Most theories are class-based explanations. That's a key point, okay? Because if you get an essay on social class, you need to be aware of how much social class is an influence on all the perspectives. People often don't realise that, so when they get a question about social class, they don't realise. Like functionalism is basically a class-based explanation. So most theories on crime are class-based explanations. Okay, most theories on crime are class-based explanations. They're focused on social class as a way of explaining crime. And so what we have is different explanations, different levels of analysis. The functionalists actually focus on the structure of society, but also the culture of society as well. So they're actually interested in both sides of that picture. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with functionalism. Okay, so they tend to analyse. So Durkheim and Merton are functionalists. Okay, they tend to look at the level of structure and culture as important in explaining crime and deviance. Okay, so the key point to make, I'm going to ask you to present some information in small groups about the key points of functionalism. We'll have a discussion. Before we do that, I want you to understand that the functionalist approach looks at structure and culture to explain crime. So make sure you've got that key point noted down. Okay, the functionalists consider the importance of structure and culture to explain crime. That's a very important overall point. So note that down. So the functionalists emphasise structure, like the divisions between large-scale groups, systems, institutions, and culture, the beliefs that people hold within those groups, both structure and culture are used to explain crime. Okay, so that's a very important point. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to look through the overall points. Okay, we're going to start with Hobbes and Durkheim. So on page 12, we've got some overall points about functionalism. So I'm going to give out the groups now.